Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet, and another best of the week video, starting with Oleksandr Usyk, who has told Sky Sports that he expects to only have 2 more fights in his career maximum. So 1 to 2 fights, with 2 being the max. I guess it's not a great surprise that he's only got 2 more fights left. It kind of feels like all those guys who've been the top guys in recent years are right at the tail end of their careers and only have a couple of big money, big time fights left in them before they sort of see themselves out of the division. And I guess the real question is, who would it be? There has been obviously talk that Usyk could go back down to cruiserweight to try become undisputed champion again. I don't know. I'd rather not see that. I'd rather see him stay at heavyweight, but then the question becomes, well, who does he fight? Because pretty much all the big names in recent times he has fought. And a couple of guys that maybe at one point he could have fought, like Deontay Wilder, well, Wilder's not relevant anymore. So, yeah, certainly a big question. But obviously, another couple of fights we get to enjoy Oleksandr Usyk. Frazer Clarke has been confirmed to fight Ebenezer Tetteh, and this will be on a card on the 20th of April in Birmingham. So as we know, Clarke is coming back off a loss to Fabio Wardley, where he was stopped in the first round of that fight after what was a very good competitive first fight, but the rematch obviously did not go his way. So he says, hard to express how excited I am to get back in there. I love this game and I can't wait to remind people of what I'm capable of. We are as close to home as we can get, and I'll have ticket information for you all soon, yada yada yada. Clarke versus Tetteh. So he says he wants to show us what he can do, but against a guy like Ebenezer Tetteh, I'm not so sure that's the guy that's going to give you the platform to do it, because I don't rate Tetteh, and I think his performance against Dillian Whyte, where Whyte looked absolutely shot to bits, and it went a lot of rounds, and Ebenezer Tetteh was devastatingly competitive at times, unexpectedly so. I think what we're going to get out of this is Frazer Clarke is going to beat him up and probably won't learn a lot. But I can see why they've made it. Because Whyte looked so poor against Tetteh, it's kind of made Ebenezer Tetteh somewhat relevant as an opponent. And Clarke, if he goes in there and dusts him off in a couple of rounds, can sort of say, hey, look what I've done. A guy like Dillian Whyte, who's been a top contender, couldn't do that. But the thing is, Whyte is washed to bits at the moment. He's certainly very far on the downslide of his career. But, you know, good on Ebenezer Tetteh for parlaying that Whyte fight into another payday, and so quickly, because he has been pretty inactive in recent years. So Clarke returns, and, you know, it is what it is. It's a tune-up comeback opponent. And also, Frazer Clarke has been out in Saudi Arabia working with Joseph Parker, I should say, ahead of Parker's fight against Daniel Dubois. Also in camp, Guido Vianello. He's just been announced in a fight with Richard Torrez. So all these guys getting some benefit of working together. Also, Dave Allen, his big fight against Johnny Fisher, where he seemingly upset the apple cart but did not get the decision, and there's been talk of a rematch, and Eddie Hearn's spoken about a rematch potentially for May. Well, it's mid-February 2025, and Allen says he hasn't got a contract, hasn't had a discussion. So he says, hello everyone, I feel I must say something, as the last few days lots have been asking me, is the rematch happening and what's the hold-up? I'm yet to receive an offer for a second fight with Johnny, and if I don't get one and they want to go another route, I will be the first to wish him the best. He doesn't owe me anything. This is a hard game, and I've realized myself, finally you've got to do what's best for number one. I am a professional boxer, and with the right notice and the right money, I will box anyone. As always, I will be transparent with everybody on my career moving forward, and currently we are in the gym waiting on our next move, but as of right now, nothing is on the table, and I'm getting myself back in top shape. And Allen did look in better shape for that fight with Fisher, where, you know, I think he was robbed in that one. I think he definitely deserved to get the decision. I thought he won more rounds, and obviously he had Johnny Fisher hurt at multiple points. But you have to ask the question, are they intending to have that fight, but they're trying to just shave down the time and the notice that Allen will get to prepare for a second fight to try to crib any advantage that they can have for Fischer if the rematch is held and Allen gets maybe 6 weeks notice, for example. I mean, that happens all the time. But Dave Allen sounds like he's wise to it anyway, and looks like he's, or by the sounds of it at least, and I guess you could never really know with Allen, with his training being a little bit up and down and not happening sometimes. He says he's in the gym, so we'll take it at face value anyway, as much as we can. This is something that happened a week ago, but I just wanted to note it, and more for, you kind of make of it what you will, because it doesn't really have any relevance in the division at this point. But Alexander Povetkin, now retired heavyweight Alexander Povetkin, currently serving a 4-year ban following an investigation which uncovered the previously unreported presence of banned substance ostarine in a sample provided in 2014. Obviously, the testing has caught up now. Alexander Povetkin was mired in different scandals at a certain period around that time. It's too much to get into all the details because he has some points on his side with changing rules and other bits and pieces, but obviously it doesn't really make a lot of difference to the division, but he is serving a 4-year ban. But at 40-something plus now, I can't see him making a comeback anytime soon, and obviously this will hurt that anyway if he tried to do it. Alexander Flores is disappointed that he didn't get the fight with Richard Torrez. So it was interesting because he had posted that he was going to be fighting Richard Torrez on March 29th in Las Vegas, and at the same time, you had Torrez on a social media previewing that a fight announcement was coming soon. Ultimately, they announced it on Top Rank card that he was going to be headlining versus Guido Vianello. So then obviously Alexander Povetkin's a bit miffed by this, but it is quite common that when matchmakers and promoters are setting up fights, that sometimes multiple fighters are approached. There will be a contract agreed on one side, but obviously what's happened in this one, they wanted to keep their options open for the bigger fight if they could get it. So you have a case of Torrez taking the better and bigger fight and headlining against Guido Vianello a week later. But this has left Torrez not that happy. He says, unfortunately, my team and myself got the news yesterday that the fight scheduled for March 29th in Vegas is off. And I guess this is all the other point of it is that, it is always risky to go out there and say that you've got the fight if the promoter hasn't announced it, because sometimes stuff like this can happen. They move on to another option. Alexander Flores says, for the exact reason I'm not sure. I signed the contract about a month ago. Originally the agreement was for 10 rounds, then it switched to 8 rounds. Even with all the changes in rounds and less money, I still agreed to the terms. I want to apologize to my sponsors, friends and family who had already booked their hotels and stay in Las Vegas. All I know is I'm here to fight. As I'm right now, looking like I'll be back in the ring in April. And he says, I smell, and you can with the cat emoji, sort of come to your own conclusions what he means by that. But let's face it, when he says effectively that he's being ducked here by Richard Torrez, that's not the case. Guido Vianello versus Richard Torrez is a much better fight, and a better fight that fans would want to see over this one. It's a better caliber of opponent. So I know he's disappointed, but also some of those statements that I smell, Ketty, not based in reality, because Torrez is not scared of Alexander Flores. You've got Alexis Barriere, I should say. He will be on Matchroom's first ever Canadian show, which is being held in conjunction with Yvonne Michelle. So he will be in the co-feature. He will be facing Ubaldo Ilagor on the card. So I'm not exactly familiar with Ilagor and his work, but of this fight, he says, for me, it's a new start on February 28, when my international career really begins. I may not have been active in fights in the last year, but it was a rich experience and learning thanks to Tyson Fury and my trainer Sugar Hill, and he had been in camp with Tyson Fury preparing him for those fights with Usyk. I know my opponent is dangerous, but nothing is going to stop me. I can't wait to give you a great show. And his opponent Ilagor says, I have the opportunity I've been waiting for. I feel ready for this new challenge, and I've been training for a month and a half in Las Vegas in the best preparation of my life. So obviously this card coming up later this month as I record this video. So Alexis Barriere pictured here, promo post from that he's got up on his Instagram page here. So Barriere is an interesting fighter in a sense that I mean, I've seen a number of his fights, and sometimes I've been really impressed, and then other times I've been really disappointed. He does have good skills, good abilities, and a bit of pop, but also sometimes he's just super cautious and defensive, and sometimes that has led to less than stellar performances against guys that he should be absolutely beating the brakes off. So I'm a little bit mixed on Barriere at this point. He might be unbeaten. He's obviously trying to impress on the show and land a promotional deal that'll, obviously get him closer to bigger fights in the heavyweight division, but I think he is one of these guys that's got a ceiling probably around top 20 or so. Speaking of guys who may have reached their ceiling, Solomon Dacres, he recently got defeated by David Adelaide, absolutely waxed in a round. You've got his management company, S-Jam Boxing, saying, I'm excited for Sol Dacres, and so this is his manager, Adam Morley, saying, I'm excited for Sol Dacres' return. A loss can be the making of you. And in that sort of quartet where you had Fabio Wardley, you also had Frazer Clarke, David Adelaide, and Solomon Dacres. Dacres is looking like the guy that's 4 of 4 in that group, and probably not rising too much past English level. If not, he might get a little bit higher British level, but it's sort of hard to see after the fights with Michael Webster how much better he can get. He's obviously got some good skills, but at the same time, there is something lacking. He sometimes looks a little bit slow, and the power, or the lack thereof, certainly is hampering him. And getting absolutely decimated by Adelaide was not a good look. But maybe that will be something that will spur him to get better. But I do think there certainly is a ceiling, and he's pretty much close to it. And speaking of a guy who is yet to find the ceiling, young prospect Alex Leapai Jr., the Australian, unbeaten so far, half a dozen fights or so on the ledger, not yet 20, so he will be looking to really make a splash as he works his way up the ranks, returning February 26 against another, opponent where he can get some experience, and he should win, and probably by a stoppage. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.